Hello and welcome to episode 4, season 2 of Dogs on Skates. I am J Dog. That is Andy. We have got another packed episode for you guys, and another interesting week for the Vancouver Canucks. Not really too far off of what we expected, I don't think. Feels pretty on brand for the Canucks to do a tough road trip, get one win where we would expect a loss, get one loss where we'd expect a win, and then lose the rest of them.
But we were
So
right there.
we
We
were
were
right
right
there
there.
for all of them,
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Um, so this is December 3rd that we're podcasting, and the Canucks just came off their road trip where they went 1-2-1, beating the Sharks, losing to the beating the Ducks, losing to the Sharks and to the Avalanche, and overtime to the Kings. That Kings game particularly interesting because I missed it. Went back to watch it the next day and was like, okay, 2-1 overtime game. Shots are like 19-18. And I turned it on and I was like, there's a goal. I'm like, okay, wow, they got one of the two goals out of the way right away. And then it was called off. And then there was another goal and that was called off. And then there was another goal and that was called off. All in like the first 4 minutes. It was wild. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, a little ridiculous. There was a lot of goals in that game. Just
Right?
half of them didn't count.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was very bizarre. But I think what the talk, the Canucks are more than just the product on the ice. They're also the drama off the ice and the trades and everything like that. And I think that is what has consumed the thoughts of Canucks fans, as is the case for most bottom of the standings teams. Because when you're not winning, you don't really want to just talk about losses every day. You'd rather try and talk about solutions. So looking at trades, and therefore we've got a lot heating up around Kiefer Sherwood and Connor Garland and Evander Kane and Quinn Hughes and on and on and on. Um, yeah, where would you like to start? I mean, we've got Kiefer Sherwood, Garland. Anywhere you'd like to begin?
Well, let's start with the thing that I guess was the most certain, that being Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah,
We mentioned him last week and talked a little bit about what the price tag for Mr. Sherwood might look like. The rumor
and
out there.
I
What
think
do
we
you
were
got?
saying like a late first. I think is something we were saying last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard this week, and I don't know where the source is, but trust me, that the ask is more like a first plus something,
Right.
which is pretty good for a guy that you just got for nothing.
Right. Yeah, and
Um,
he's a guy that's going to be a UFA this summer as well. So who knows if you'll be able to keep him or what. So
yeah. I mean, I don't imagine the Canucks have much ability to keep anybody at this point.
yeah.
I don't know who would voluntarily stay unless the Canucks just threw an absurd amount of money at them.
Right. And
Um,
which would not be smart. And
no,
something we haven't seen of this Canucks management team. They're more willing to walk from guys like Zadorov than throw obscene bags of cash at them, which I think is
unless your
good
name's
in the
Brock
long run.
Besser.
Right. Which I mean, I think most people were expecting his number to come in like above 9. So at the time, that changes quickly once the season gets going. But at the time,
Yeah.
I think the number was expected to be of 9. So I don't know. Elliot Friedman today on Morning Cup of Hockey, and I've got a few things from that podcast because he really delved into like the whole Canucks situation. But he talked about Kiefer Sherwood and said that originally he thought that Sherwood would be dealt by the end of the road trip, which has just ended. Sounds like it's going to take longer now. The Canucks have a higher or quite a high asking price, which I think is good. And I'm glad to hear that they're not just trying to, give him to the first bidder.
Well, lots of
Um,
suitors too, right? That they
exactly.
want to make sure they call around and drum up as much as they can. So it
That's
doesn't make
right.
sense to rush it at this point.
Exactly. And on Connor Garland, according to Rick Dollywall, saying, "I just heard over the weekend, there's a lot of teams that love this guy. I don't know if the Canucks will move Garland unless they get a great offer, but the interest for Garland is just as high, I was told, as Sherwood." So there seems to be a lot of interest around both those guys. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, what playoff team wouldn't want a Sherwood or a Garland on your on your run? Like guys that are, they seem like just magic in terms of like chemistry and like locker room guys, and also play like all situations, can contribute offensively, try and like absolutely win every single puck battle. So I can see, I understand why they're being so sought after, and I'm glad that the Canucks are waiting and not just shipping them out the door at the first opportunity.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disheartened at how quickly my Hughes jersey and my son's Garland jersey might be
Yeah.
obsolete. We got those in April. That's
Yeah,
painful.
it
But
is.
it is what it is. I mean, if you can get a first plus for Sherwood, if there's comparable interest in Garland and you can get a package that includes a first plus for him, you're going to get multiple firsts plus for Quinn Hughes if you move him. I mean, that'll make you a terrible team for this year, which likely means a lottery pick. And you're going to have an abundance of first round picks probably this year and next. So that can be one of the world's fastest rebuilds potentially.
Right. Right. If
Um,
it's done correctly.
yeah, yeah.
So, in terms of this retool, in terms of this, like, somewhat of a teardown, how far do you think the Canucks should go with this? Do you just take off the top and remove UFAs? Do you take it down several, like, core pieces, or do you just go all the way to, like, to the bottom? Like, that's
You
Demko,
said
Pedersen, everybody.
should or would?
Should. Realistically, what should they do?
I think we've been saying this for at least a year that if you're losing Quinn Hughes, you blow it up,
Right.
right? Like as long as he was going to stick around, you owed it to him and the team to try to make a go of it, right? When
Correct.
you've got that kind of generational
Something they
player.
haven't exactly done, but yes.
Exactly. So I think that if you are going to move off of Quinn Hughes, and it sounds very much like that is now being described as a when, not an if,
Mm-hmm.
and which the answer to that should be more or less immediately.
Right.
But if that is the case and you are serious about moving off of Quinn, then I go scorched earth and I move out anybody who's on a contract for multiple years with big money, and I just yeah I ship out anybody who really has much value, with the exception of maybe a guy or guys like Tyler Myers,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't think Tyler Myers is going to have a tremendous amount of value to other teams.
That's interesting because I've heard other like podcasters and fans of other markets talk about him as a guy they would have interest in from the Canucks roster.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they
I think,
watch a lot of Canucks games?
I don't know. I think it's the veteran presence, like the experience. I mean, he had a pretty big name even before coming to Vancouver. His size doesn't hurt. So I think there's a lot from the outside that, and honestly, like as a Canucks fan, I'm pretty happy most of the time he's on the ice as long as he's playing in the role that he should be.
I'm just acutely aware of the need for some kind of leadership on the team. A guy
Right.
who's been around, has kind of seen it all, done it all, um, and can kind of show the younger guys the ropes. Because if you do go fully scorched earth,
Yeah.
you're going to have a very young, very inexperienced team, and that can be exciting in some ways.
But you don't want Buffalo or Edmonton or any of those kinds of experiences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't want to be
Um,
mired in perpetual rebuild
right.
because
Which is
that's not good
where
for anybody.
I will kind of actually push. So I was on the same boat. I'm like, okay, if you go for it, and then if you have to move Quinn, whatever, you just tear the whole thing down and restart. As this has gone, and I would argue Pedersen looking so much more like OG Pedersen over the last month than we have seen for a year and a half now, probably. He's taking shots. He is doing stuff with a puck that I was like, cool. I haven't seen that for a long time, and he's doing it way more regularly now, pretty much every game. So, and if you've noticed, there's been pretty much, despite the Canucks losing, there's been no talk about Pedersen. None. That's like a really good sign as to what's going on here. Because if they're winning, sure, you maybe just like hide up behind the fact that they're winning. They are losing and losing terribly, and no one is talking about Pedersen anywhere, which I think is a fabulous sign about how he has changed from last season.
I think that's a little like your car has an oil leak, but are you concerned with that when it's just been chopped in half and you're just driving on the front wheels and the back half of your car is missing? It feels a little
Um,
like that.
so I would say that it was a bit more than an oil leak last year.
No, I'm saying that that's how it is this year. That Pedersen is the oil leak.
Right.
Like I don't
But
think
last
anybody should be happy
right.
with where Pedersen's at. It's just it's better than it was, and it's less of an issue than everything else facing the team right now.
So last year Pedersen there was no steering wheel. This year it's an oil leak. And I think that is a major improvement from what he has been. And if he has gone from honestly, beginning of this season, the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the season, it was still pretty much like without a steering wheel, a very big problem to driving this car. If he's now an oil leak and is starting to show flashes of original stuff that we've seen on a fairly consistent basis against hard matchups, I'm like, okay, that's good. If he's less of a problem, that's a really good thing for our future, whether you're trading him or you're keeping him. I think at this point, you have to think that we're probably keeping him. At least that's the vibe I have. I don't know if that's the feel. I don't know. But if that's the way we're going, I would argue that we should um, try keep though like the Jake DeBrusks, the Pedersens, keep some of those pieces in place. Tank the rest of the year. I mean, we're already doing it pretty easily. It wouldn't be too hard if you move out Kiefer Sherwood. It's like half our goals, and Connor Garland and a few of those pieces, and you're now on the bottom. You can maybe get, I don't know. Saying Gavin feels unrealistic and like a pipe dream, but if you can get a top 3, top 4 pick, you can. That's a player you could possibly insert into your lineup next season with the amount of young defensive depth that the team already has. If you can then bring in a semi-veteran player, I don't like Ryan O'Reilly feels too old, but if you can bring in some player along those lines and to be able to shelter that new top prospect player that you have come into the lineup, and whatever, like all of the pieces you're going to get back from moving Garland and Sherwood and Quinn Hughes, your team could very quickly do that switch around, kind of like what the New York Rangers did, where they're like, we are selling. And then 2 years later, we're like, we are in the third round again. So I don't know. Like it's
Yeah, no,
starting to
the
come.
Rangers are in a great place. Let's copy them.
Okay. Things took a bit of a nosedive over the last couple of years, but they had a run where they were in like the third round, like 2 or 3 years in a row. But I just wonder, like, I don't think I'm concerned about tearing it all the way down. Because are we really sure that they're going to be able to recoup the players? Like, how long are you going to be down there before you can get actually really great players?
I'll meet you part way. We don't have to tear it all the way down, but the teardown has to include PD. If you
Interesting.
ask me, I think that PD is a competent player. I think he provides value for the team at this point. I don't even think his contract is all that bad for what he's doing. He's not a point per game, but he's solid defensively, and his face-offs are getting better, and he's showing a little more, like you say, of the old Petey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if we're talking about guys to keep around and kind of usher in the new era of Canucks hockey, I don't think Petey's the guy I want at the helm of that.
What if he's your 2C? What if you draft Gavin McKenna? I don't hate it. I would prefer someone like a Tage Thompson, I think, especially with the dollar difference, but I don't hate it. Especially with his like defensive abilities. If he's not having to be the guy that's actually driving the bus, I don't hate that. I feel like he's the type of player that would be very beneficial to coincide with a like younger movement within the team.
And if you don't get Gavin McKenna and you go into next season with Elias Pettersson as your number one center again,
Mm-hmm.
the story doesn't change.
Fair. I don't think Gavin is the only top rookie.
I think he's the only one that's likely to play in the NHL next year as a forward.
Could you trade him at the point when you find out whether you get Gavin McKenna or not?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really help your tank. I mean, a full tank, you deal everybody you can
Right.
once you pull the plug on the season.
Yeah.
I'm okay with keeping some guys around. If you wanted to keep Jake DeBrusk, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
That's no problem. I would rather not keep Besser. I already don't like his contract. If you can facilitate a deal to the Wild, not even for a return, just to get out from under it, right? And just have that cap space back.
I really want to see Brock with a different NHL centerman other than Elias Pettersson. I am so curious what would happen. I just don't know. Like we've seen him with Teddy Bluger and Atu Ratu and whoever else, and we've seen him with Pettersson, and obviously we can both agree Pettersson's a pretty unique player. What would he look like with with Ryan O'Reilly, with Braden Shen, with like any
Marco Rossi?
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
On the Wild.
Right. Yeah.
Joel Eriksson Ek.
So, but that's honestly something that would scare me. If we are getting like moving him just to get out from under that, and then the cap goes up to 110 million, now it's not even that big of a cap hit, and he can start scoring on the wing of Marco Rossi, and they have Kirill Kaprizov on the other side. Like that's gross. It's so filthy.
I don't think Besser's a guy that you're ever going to be unable to replace.
I don't know. Yeah. It's deep.
I'm not impressed. Okay. Let me put it to you this way. We'll do a little crossover segment here with the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays identified kind of a type of player, right? Guys who play the game a certain way, have a certain attitude, that dog in them, right? I want that for the Canucks. I want the Canucks to have, for the first time in a long time, a solid team identity. Of we play hard, we play fast.
I don't think that's been a long time. I think they had that with Foot actually.
When?
Or sorry, Foot. Talkett. I think that was very, very much their identity, that they're like, we are going to be the hardest working team. That was the whole thing. When they made to the second round, nearly knocking off the Oilers in Game 7, that was the whole thing, is he has changed the identity of this team. They're now going to like work hard for every puck. They're all of these things. Before that,
they didn't.
It was a long, like, what do you mean?
How'd they do last year?
Right. Yes, like
They
and
did that for a year, and
right.
it was glorious.
Yeah.
So I take your point. It hasn't been a very long time.
Right.
It's been a long time since it was consistently.
Like an Alan Vino with the Sedines kind of
Yeah,
like a style where this is your identity for
yeah.
over 5 years.
And I'm not saying that was the answer, that
Right.
style or whatever, but you kind of knew what the Canucks were, right? And
True.
I kind of want to get back to that. I want to be able to look at a guy and be like, that's a Canuck, right?
Right.
Like I can do that now with players in MLB, right? And be like, ooh, that guy looks like a Blue Jay. He would fit in. He
Mm-hmm.
plays Blue Jay baseball, right?
And I think
I
that
want Canuck
takes,
hockey to be a thing.
I think that honestly takes success for the identity to form. Like I'm trying to think of the last team that wasn't winning that had like a strong identity. I can't think of one. The only identity teams are the ones that do something and do something like deep in the playoffs. You talked about
Or
the
are
Blue
the only
Jays
teams who go deep in the playoffs the ones who have a core identity?
and that chicken and the
Chicken or the
egg, like
egg?
that. And I think that it is. I think it is a bit of like column A, column B. Because I think there's probably a lot of teams that have an identity, but it's not shown to its fullness until you're winning. But that also reinforces the identity, which makes it more pronounced, and then yeah, that just continues the cycle. But you talk about the Blue Jays a year ago, I don't think you'd be naming any Blue Jays player that was like that looks like a Blue Jay, other than trying to imagine Shohei and the blue and white.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Too
Well,
soon.
if we had one,
A
it would be a
different
different
blue and
story. But
white. Different blue and white.
true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the Quinn Hughes side of this conversation, and to open that up, I want to show a little clip of Elliot Friedman being interviewed on Morning Cup of Hockey today, that I thought was really fascinating. He really gets into like what he thinks, and as like one of, if not the most plugged in people into the hockey world, what his thoughts are on the Canucks and like trades and everything like that. Oops, I forgot to share it. And right here.
Before we let you go, or Johnny might have one more for you. There's been all this Quinn Hughes discussion going on, and I know you've talked about it. You wrote about it. You had it on your show, and you've probably been being asked this question left and right. And my question for you, because like I see Detroit people in here in our chat today, and there's always Philly people in our chat, and I've been kind of saying from the get-go, if you expect to get him, you're not getting him for all unproven assets. You're going to have to part ways with a Lucas Raymond or a Matvei Michkov or one of those types of guys. That's just my opinion. That's all I'm saying. And that's what I want to ask you is like, am I crazy to think that Vancouver is going to say, if you want our 26-year-old franchise elite superstar, you're not just going to get away with unproven assets? Like, what is the ask-ish? And I know, again, this is a hypothesis, but your ears to the ground. What is it going to take, let's say, for a team like Detroit, if they were going to step up and acquire Quinn Hughes?
So I don't think, first of all, your hypothesis is not wrong. It's not going to be unproven assets, but I don't think it's going to be a Mishkov, unless for some reason Philly wanted to do that. I don't think it's going to be something like that. And I don't think it'll be Lucas Raymond, unless for some reason Steve Yzerman wanted to do that. I think that the challenge here for Vancouver is that the longer this goes, the more it tips to Hughes, right, in terms of the leverage. Like, you always have to take a look at the clock. And when you're earlier in your contract or you're earlier in your service time, the leverage is more towards the team. But the later you're in your service time or the later you're in your contract, the leverage flips more to the player. Quinn Hughes is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. The longer that goes, the more the leverage tips to the player, and it affects what a team can get for him. So, unless a Philly or a Detroit decides they wanted to trade a Raymond or a Mishkov in this deal, I don't see that being the case. But I do see legitimate NHLers going in return for that. And the one thing that Detroit has that Philly doesn't is they have a center. And I do think when I rank the teams and I say who can do this and where would Hughes want to go, I would say Detroit's very high on my list. And the big challenge with Detroit, and don't forget, Jim Rutherford and Steve Yzerman did a deal out of nowhere a couple years ago, and that was Philip Roenick. And so I always look at that. Who's done deals together in the past? Who's done deals together quietly in the past? Like Yzerman's a vault. Nothing gets out of him. But can you see him not being interested in Quinn Hughes? Can you see Quinn Hughes not being interested in Detroit when the time comes? So I think they're very legit. And Detroit has centers and centers who can play in the NHL. And I'm not talking about the depth guys. I'm talking about, probably I think everybody can figure out who I'm talking about, although I don't like to name names. So like a guy who would make sense in that deal. And so I think Detroit is a team to watch. And, one thing that they've made very clear, Vancouver, is they have to get another center. They need somebody to play behind EP40. And their best chance to do it is if they end up trading Hughes. So if that happens, I'm looking at teams that have like a number 2 center that can play with Pettersson, and Detroit has one of those guys.
I just know Quinn loves Manhattan. So
sounds like the Canucks, according to Elliot, and if that's the case, are very much wanting to go, like, we use Quinn Hughes to go after center, but it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to get a, close for one piece, or even like a top player, if what he's saying is correct and that ends up being true. Like if he's not suspecting a Michkov or a Raymond or someone like that. Now he does insinuate, I don't know if it's in this video or not, but he insinuates a center from Detroit. Now,
That's Larkin.
I'm pretty sure that's Larkin. He's like, I'm not going to name any names, but I think we're talking Larkin there. Now that is like, I would love that so much. I think that's exactly a player with character, with drive, shows up so consistently, and someone you can build a franchise around and have young guys be able to develop around him as well. And maybe a guy who's looking for a change of scenery. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting.
I don't love the idea of another guy who can't quite crest that point per game. Well, I guess he's done it once. He had 69 points in 68 games a couple of years back.
Okay.
But he's very similar to Pettersson production wise, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. He brings a different element than
Definitely
Petey does.
Yeah.
And that would be sorely needed. So I wouldn't hate that as, the centerpiece of a trade. That would, to me, very much depend on what else was in that package.
Do you know how many points he has this season?
I'm gonna check my crystal ball. I think he's got like 30.
He has 30 points in 27 games, so he's over a point per game this season. 14 of those are goals, so basically half of them are goals. That is pretty, like, that's someone I would definitely want to have on my team, and someone who doesn't seem to be slowing down with age. Like he's not, he reminds me of like a poor man's John Tavares kind of thing, where I think like he's had to learn how to be good despite not being super fast or super skilled with his hands, but knows how to like think the game properly and be kind of a true vet, and has been the captain of the Wings for a long time. I think that would be a huge get, and someone that's a little bit, I think, younger than someone like Ryan O'Reilly. Yeah, he's only 29. So,
I mean, you say he's only 29. I say he's 29. But in all honesty, though, right? Like, it depends on, I think, how they view the next half decade of Canucks hockey.
Right.
Are you really trying again to retool on the fly and have a competitive team in the next couple of years after shipping out Quinn Hughes, Kiefer Sherwood, Connor like the heart and soul of your team,
Right.
you're going to move out and you're going to say, oh no, we're totally going to be fine. We're going to be back in it soon.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not the case, then I don't love it. I don't love bringing in a guy who's pushing 30. I just don't. I'd rather the team be younger, get more future focused assets in return for Hughes. And yeah, it's a gamble, right? He talks about proven NHL players versus, you know, the uncertainty of draft picks or young prospects. I don't know. I don't know that I'm there with him. I
Yeah.
think I would honestly rather kind of take those lottery tickets of the draft picks and
Yeah.
prospects.
That's fair. And we would like to welcome Jared to our show for the first time ever, my good friend and another fellow diehard Canucks fan who is, you know, living in it daily. The ups
Sorry,
and
man.
Hard
downs.
meaning dying daily, yeah.
Dying hard daily.
Dying
Yes,
hard
correct.
daily, yes.
It hurts.
um,
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Of course,
Good to
of
have
course. We were just discussing Elliot Friedman, what he talked about on
Yeah.
Morning Cup of Hockey, talking about, you know, Quinn Hughes and what the Canucks are potentially looking to get back or what they can get back, what teams are potentially willing to give up. Dylan Larkin's name being one of those names, or not names mentioned, but people insinuated among those. So, yeah,
it was
what are your
pretty
thoughts?
interesting. I was really interested by the comments because, in one sense, we heard this idea of Lucas Raymond, Michkov, and I thought
Right.
there's a way that for sure I see the Canucks going young, exciting players that we should maybe look for. Elliot took a little bit of the wind out of my sails. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little deflated. But you know, there's other things, and I mean, the more you guys get to know me, the more you'll know that at this point in the game, I think it's time where the management they've set a course, and now it's a matter of seeing where they're going to take it. And so, you know, I've heard some speculation, some ideas of maybe a top to bottom change out of house. You know, I'm not there yet. I'm going to be, maybe that's a little bit of a different take today, but I'm just
that's
not
what I wanted to ask you.
ready for that.
Like,
yeah.
How much of a retool, and that was something I asked Andy. Andy, I think, was more on the side of tearing it right down.
Scorched earth.
Completely from the bottom.
If you're confident that you're losing Hughes, and it sure looks like that's a when, not an if at this point. If that's the case, then I'm all in favor of a full teardown.
Sure. And honestly, I can get behind it. I'm not vehemently opposed. The thing about this is that we've seen them bring in Foot in a lot of ways to keep Hughes. So if you lose Hughes, you know, is Foot the guy you wanna be rebuilding around? I can't say for any certainty that I'm there for that. But
no, I don't think so.
But I just look at this and go, okay, we can see that they made this reactionary move. If Quinn decides he's going to go, and this is kind of a new development in the franchise now, maybe I could see them changing house top to bottom. But part of me is looking at this going, okay, they have to deal. They've made good deals. We know that the one thing that they seem to be pretty good at is getting other teams to the table and having interesting and quick moving deals with teams. And I can't look at any of the deals they've made and go, that was a huge problem, a huge mistake. We should never have traded for this guy. There's a few signings in question, I think.
Maybe,
that a lot of the people,
maybe Mikheyev.
yeah, right? Sure.
Yeah.
There's a few signings for sure that I think people are going to scrutinize and question and have every right to do so. But am I confident that they could get a good return for Quinn? Yeah. And maybe it wouldn't be the return another GM would go for. But I think whatever pieces they get back, these guys are going to be good at getting good value if they do decide to do this. Hopefully it's value that is kind of universally seen as value, not just unique value to them, right? I mean, for now, I look at this and go, I think they have shown a little. It's time for them to put the rubber to the road. They've set the course. If it's a retool, if it's a rebuild, you kind of want to see them make that happen, because I feel like we've seen a lot of not wishy-washiness with these guys, but just uncontrolled circumstances taking them down different paths. And it'd be really interesting to see if they actually say, okay, boop, we're pulling the trigger. This is what we're doing. We're going to be men of action and make it happen. And this is the roadmap to success now.
Yeah. I think that's been something I think is consistent across the Canucks fan base, is that need for management to take control back. It feels like we've been lost at sea a little bit and just getting drifted by Quinn Hughes stuff or JT Miller and Pedersen stuff or whatever, Buble and Saravelli stuff. Like everything is like basically chaos, and the Canucks management have felt like they've been hanging on rather than controlling. And I think if we can see some ability to be able to retake control of the team and the situation, that will help bring back a lot of confidence to this fan base. And I was arguing earlier that I could actually see, and I think I've talked with you, Jared, earlier about this, is if they trade away Quinn Hughes, what do you do? Originally I was okay, you tear it down. I'm starting to come to the side now of maybe you can actually retool this thing. You do have you have decent pieces. If you're to get a very high draft pick that can come into the team very quickly, I mean, we're seeing what Bedard and Celebrini are doing in their second and third seasons. They're tearing it up.
Yeah.
So if you somehow can get a McKenna, which at this point seems not all that unlikely, you're second last in the NHL, why can't you like rebuild this thing quickly, especially if you can get a guy like Larkin in? You've already have a lot of depth at your young defense core. You have 2 goaltenders signed. Like, there is a framework here that if you can add young pieces into this team, you can potentially kickstart it. You are losing your identity in Sherwood and Garland if you move those guys.
Yeah.
But I can see the world. And honestly, I feel more hopeful now having the Canucks losing, because I'm like, at least we're going a direction. At least we're not right just outside the playoff bar. At least there is a direction. Okay, we're losing this season. Now I can look towards prospects. I'm not confused anymore of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I'm not sure where I fall on it all, to be honest. Like, I maybe am sitting on the fence right now. I'm not 100%. I could be very okay with a full teardown, full gut of house, because that also is a direction. We know what's happening. Fair. The thing I've been frustrated with is the wishy-washiness. And I don't want to call these guys wishy-washy, but there's a degree of what's been happening here that's been exhausting for fans. How many years ago was it, we're going to the playoffs, and now it's like, maybe next year we will. Maybe next year we won't have this drama. Maybe next year we'll have Pedersen show up again. Like, and now some of these things are happening, and it has been very confusing and very exhausting. So,
it goes all the way back to the no plan. Yeah. Right. Jordan and I have talked about this at length that really we're okay with any direction the team wants to take. We just want a committed direction with a plan and then see it through to the end. Don't go halfway down a road and then decide, no, we're going to try another direction.
Yeah.
But I also think that the other consideration here is whether a full rebuild is actually even on the table.
Yeah.
With the ownership group that the Canucks have, they've been very reluctant to go down that full rebuild road. So as much as I can sit here and pound the table and go scorched earth, blow it up, I actually don't think that that's a remote possibility as long as Aquilini owns the team.
Which is a real unfortunate reality. I totally agree. And, but you look at some of these young teams. You look at Anaheim, and this year, I don't know how many people have said to me, this is must-watch hockey. Like, I can't
it's
not
so fun.
See it.
It's so fun.
Barn burner.
Right? Oh my goodness!
You go, and last year that was the Sharks, because not only did they have the sleepover and all the fun stuff off the ice, but on the ice you had this chemistry you were seeing between Will Smith and there was Eklund in the background, Celebrini up in the front. You could see the picture, And they had some of these veterans that were exciting, especially, I mean, us Canucks fans, we all love Toffoli. And like you get to see something that's being built. And I think that does draw in a lot of fans. I don't think your ticket sales are going to tank just because you're in a rebuild and you're not set for the playoffs yet. Because if there are these fun upcoming stars who don't know yet what their ceiling could be, you almost want to get in on seeing those guys before they're big. And, you know, that's exciting for fans. And so it's really frustrating when you hear this narrative of our ownership not wanting to go down this path that honestly I think could very well bring in fans, especially younger
more
fans.
Profitable, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. And like I'm more willing to buy a ticket if they can do that. Like I will go watch Gavin McKenna on a sheet of ice next year way more than I'm going to watch this team. Like I don't have plans to buy a ticket to watch this team this year.
No.
And it's not because they're bad, it's because they're directionless and just like losing when they're trying to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the directionlessness is what's killing everyone. It's not necessarily the star power you're putting out there. And the reality is that if Pettersson is back and if he is able to string together a few good seasons, consistent seasons, point per game seasons even, doing anything like he did the other night with the behind the back pass, lay down goal, like you're going to draw fans to see that too. And,
exactly.
So I don't think that needs to be this thing of fear for fans. I think a lot of fans are open to that. It is just very frustrating because there's so many people who believe that this ownership will not go down that road.
Yeah, I agree. Andy, do we want to do the video of Quinn Hughes?
We sure can.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about Quinn Hughes a lot.
All right.
I've got a video queued up here. It's of Quinn Hughes, or I guess Dawgs got it queued up.
I got you.
Of Quinn Hughes doing his very best JT Miller impersonation.
So where is he on the screen here? Is he right here, I think?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like skating through center ice, curls back around.
Drops his stick, hangs his head.
Yep. Straightens those
controller
legs.
Disconnects.
Oh my goodness.
Skates away from the play.
Engaged.
Not at all.
Completely
and I've never seen
disengaged.
Quinn Hughes look like that.
Yeah. Damn. That's wild. I watched the game and I just missed that, but
oh boy, that's painful.
That's concerning. Yeah.
That's a tough look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I think it's really getting time. And the amount of like stick smashing and everything he's doing too, stuff you don't normally see from him, it's concerning. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's disheartening to watch that, especially, one who is so quick, so fast, and who has such a good stick. And I mean,
no cares like so much.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter to me how long that shift was. That could be at the tail end of a 4-minute shift. You put your head down and you do what you can. You try to get back in the play. You try to go disrupt something. He curled away from the play into the corner. You never see that.
And it's not him. Like JT does that. You're like, that's a JT issue.
Yeah.
He's got that in his game. Yeah.
This is not a Quinn issue. Like this is not him. Yeah.
Yeah. The dejected forwards who don't back check are a dime a dozen, but that's not what we're used to from Quinn. And I think that makes it really difficult.
Definitely.
Yeah. Seeing plays like that are hard to watch. And I think the thing that's really interesting about that is that when you saw a few years ago, I felt like the Canucks were a team that played to the level of their competition. So they'd play easy teams and they'd play like trash, and they would get lit up and lose, and then they'd go and play like really good teams, and they would put up a really good effort, even if it was a close game. Maybe they win some, maybe they lose some, maybe they snag a point. But this is the best team in the NHL right now. This team is on fire. You're on a line against McKinnon. This is your chance to shut down the guy who can't be shut down. If that doesn't get you up and get you going, it's a really, really bad sign for these elite players, in my opinion. It shows more of the character of what's going on and how he's feeling than so many of these interviews where people are like, he's checked out, he's dejected. Yeah. This is the clip where I'm like, he is struggling. He's struggling.
Checked out. Yeah. Yeah, I would completely agree. I hope this gets figured out soon, because I mean, hockey's a better world when Quinn Hughes is at his best. Like regardless of the team he's on, it's so much funner to watch. So yeah. Before we end here, I wanted to just quickly touch on the Olympic rink situation.
Oh boy.
So two things.
Wow.
So Pete DeBoer joined the Real Kippern Born show and kind of dropped two bombs. One of them has got a lot of coverage, one of them not so much. So the rink situation is the one I think that everyone's talking about. The rink, first of all, it's been known that it's not done. The NHL has concerns, that sort of thing. Pete DeBoer dropped the fact that it's going to be smaller than an NHL rink
Yeah, something
would
like
be
3
by
feet.
like 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how that happens for one, and I'm so curious how that's going to change the game. Like, will it be noticeable? How noticeable will it be? Do you change the players you bring? Do you change the types of teams you bet on? Like,
That's
I think
interesting.
it's similar enough that it's not really going to be a factor, but it does get me thinking about what if hockey took the same approach as baseball,
baseball, yeah,
where you have some things like maybe between the blue lines is a fixed size and shape, but then it's a free for all beyond that.
Yikes.
You want tight little zones, go for it. You want to have big, pretzel shaped, go for it. I think it'd
90-degree
be fun.
corners.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. I don't know if I'm there with you there. It is
I'm generally
funny.
on team chaos, so
Yeah, okay. Yeah. This is one of those things where I think if anything, I'm not for it, but if anything, it's just going to make it faster. You're going to have that less space,
I don't
and
know.
you're going to have more. I think there's a factor, especially on defense, when you're behind your own net. That's the ice is smaller. There's less strides to get into the goal, and your back checking could be a lot tighter. You could even argue maybe there's a little bit of a safety risk in the fact that these guys are really accustomed to the ice. So when they think that they have a little bit of extra time and they're maybe not with their heads up, there is a risk factor for sure with having something like this. But I do think it could potentially make with smaller ice. It could mean that they're a little bit more collisions, a little bit more a little bit more speed. I'm not sure, but
I think yes to more collisions. I think it's going to slow the game down.
okay.
You're not going to have as much open space to actually break free and get into full speed. You're going to have a lot more people just in and around you. Again, I don't know how much of a difference 3 or 4 feet actually makes. And like, what do we mean by 3 or 4 feet? Is it like 3 or 4 on both sides? Like, I'm not sure like
Sure.
how different it'll be. But regardless, smaller will usually mean like more condensed. You have less time before you're to the next guy because there's going to be less space there. But it's going to be really fascinating. And the other part that to tag on to this is the officiating situation. Have you guys heard about this?
Not yet.
I just want to say before we move on to the
Sure.
officiating, I just looked it up and it's just over 3 feet shorter, but it's the same width. So I don't think
Okay.
it's a dramatic change. And I think the Olympic ice, typically the international ice, is bigger, and I've never felt that when they play on a larger sheet of ice that it's a faster or more entertaining game. I do think that the larger ice slows it down. So I'm inclined to
Interesting.
agree that being a little bit smaller, if anything, would probably skew towards a little more action, a little more speed, but it's not going
Yeah.
to be a huge difference, I don't think.
So historically, the bigger ice has been an advantage to some of like the Scandinavian teams because they'll play an international ice I think is the same length but wider. So it gives you more space to do things like cycle, like play a more east-west rather than a north-south. And a north-south has historically been more of a North American style of game. So even that alone is a big difference from like length versus width. But yeah, it'll be super fascinating.
These players they're not going to care. They might care a bit, but they're not gonna care. They're gonna want to play. They're gonna want to bring their A game. If it's anything like Four Nations, they're gonna get up for this game and show up. And those games were physical, so I do think that we're looking at a tighter game, maybe some tighter passing. Has to be a little bit more concise. Your stretch passes, things like these, are gonna have to look a little different. And yeah, you're gonna have to keep your head up. It's definitely gonna be but I'm not thinking that the players are gonna bemoan this too much. I can understand why the NHL is not pleased. I can understand why the NHLPA is not super happy about it, but I hope that this doesn't affect who gets to go. I hope that they're not concerned about that same thing that I mentioned about injuries. And I do think, even if it's less space, 3-on-3 hockey or 4-on-4 hockey there's more space. We see more speed. We see players like McKinnon getting up to speed with that open space. This is going to be a different kind of showcase, in the sense that maybe then your passing has to be a little crisper, a little quicker, and people are going to be on you pretty quick. So still could be very fast paced. I don't think it's going to slow it down, but you're right. It might not speed it up. It just might be one of those things where if you're not getting that pass off quick, you're going to get, Brady Tkachuk coming down on
Clocked.
you pretty quick.
Yeah.
J-Dog, you're right. The Olympic ice, the international ice, is almost 15 feet wider, but it's actually shorter than NHL ice.
Oh, okay.
So it almost looks like they took the width of an NHL sheet, but the length of an international sheet, and just kind of combined them. So it's a little interesting.
Weird. Okay.
Bizarre.
Strange. Maybe they
Yeah.
asked like Google AI. Can you just
It
give us
almost
fielding
feels like
plans
that,
for a rink?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other fascinating part of this, and Jared, you kind of touched on it, is the physicality aspect to the games. Now, historically, in an international competition like the Olympics, there would be a very significant difference to the level of physicality versus the NHL. The NHL being way more physical, you have fights, all that kind of stuff, just big hits. International hockey, it's called way tighter. They're not allowing as much of like the hooking, the grabbing, all that kind of stuff. But you'd normally have just IOC or IIHF officials. Well, Pete DeBoer, while on the same show, talked about how the NHL has planned to bring both NHL and IIHF officials. And I'll just read the quote. From my understanding, it's going to be half NHL referees, half IIHF referees. And if you've got so many NHL players in a specific game, it has to be NHL refs. So I think what the bottom line of that is if Canada's playing Sweden or if Canada's playing the US, one of those games where both teams are loaded with NHL players, it's going to be NHL refereeing, which I don't think we've seen before. I think this is new.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to how that changes. Like, you're going to have potentially wildly different standards for depending on like what like games are being played. It's so weird to me that it's the officials are determined by what most of the players are used to.
Yeah.
I hate that thought. I mean, it's like I feel like as fans, all we want is some consistency in officiating, right? Like I don't care what you want to call a hook, just be consistent with it. I don't care what goaltender interference is, just be consistent so the players know how far they can push it. And if you're knowingly setting it up in such a way that you're creating a situation that is by definition almost going to be inconsistent, I don't know where the thought process is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't either.
Or we're not
It's
paid
weird.
enough to make these decisions, boys.
That's true.
Really
But it's such a weird call, like such a weird decision. I don't think I've ever seen that. And also, it's going to be so weird if the game gets super heated, and like I'm assuming the NHL refs are going to be told to like really lock things down. It's going to be different than the NHL, I would assume. And like Four Nations was an NHL product, so you can view that very much through the NHL lens. This is an IOC. This is an Olympic event. Could you imagine if you had like like a line brawl or like two guys squaring off at center ice in the Olympics. Like that feels so wrong and like not what the Olympics is. I don't know. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Anyway,
I mean, they're going to have to
thought
bring
that
a
was
level of
fascinating.
compete, right? And if they, if Brady and Matthew can't quite play the same way, I mean, woe is the USA, I guess. But
But if they can,
yeah,
if they can bring a level of compete or like a little more edginess because it's NHL refs, do you now, as Team Canada, have to think about bringing Sam Bennett over Caulfield or
right.
Tom Wilson over Scheifele? Like, are those decisions you have to make because your opponent has those kinds of players and you have to try and match it because of it's not the traditional officiating style. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really fascinating and adds a lot, like a big twist into trying to figure out who you bring. And I want to like actually go through that and actually build a roster with you guys on a future show, but
Sure.
that's not today. Okay. Lastly, just want to give a shout out. Jesper Wallstedt, 1-0 shutout over the Oilers yesterday. He has 4 shutouts in his 6 starts in his rookie season with the Minnesota Wild. That's not even like a team that's stacked. This is the Minnesota Wild, and he's went in and got 4 shutouts, including shutout the Oilers, who outshot them like it was like 35-23 or something like that. Just a big shout out to Jesper Wallstedt, who sadly has overtaken as their goaltender, and I had Gustafsson on my fantasy team, so not
And
great.
I picked up Wallstead.
Dang it.
Yeah, the kid's been
Anyway.
unreal.
That's pretty cool.
In must-start territory for sure right now.
Definitely. All right, I think that's all for today. Thanks, boys. Until next time.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Peace.
Peace.